yes, we do live in that world of instant gratification, but for sure, real estate is a long-term investment. And I can tell you a million different stories of clients that I've had in the past in the 13, 15 years I've been doing this, where they bought a starter home because number one, and the most important thing I preach to my clients is they were able to afford the monthly payment.
Right.
Take interest rates out, take the fact that, oh, the house was X amount of dollars when they bought it, right? But it's because let's be real, most people at their core look at what is going in and out of their bank account on a monthly basis, right? Whether you rent and your rent's $2,800, great. That's what you look at and go, okay, we can afford this rent, right? Well, it's the same with mortgages. And obviously there's more benefits to owning a house. I don't need to dive into that aspect of it. But to summarize it, it's you're looking at its core as to how much money is going out of your bank account every single month. And my goal, obviously, is to walk through with people and go, look, you can afford this. Because there is a difference between qualifying and affording, right?
Right.
And to give you an example, let's say there's someone that's a salaried employee that makes $20,000 a month, right? If they had no other debt, hypothetically, they could qualify for a payment that's like $9,000 a month.
Right.
But who the heck wants to have a $9,000 a month mortgage payment? So there's a difference between what you qualify for versus what you feel comfortable affording.
Exactly.
Because look, you still want to go on your trips and, you know, people like we were talking about earlier, you like going on vacations or you want to go hang out with friends and maybe go to the occasional dinner every once in a while. Like you don't want to completely change your lifestyle, right?
Feel restricted.
So going back to the whole game planning and about the long-term aspect of it is you sit there and you buy a house that makes sense for you, whether it's a 2-bed, 2-bath condo, because it's just a newlywed and like you don't need it. Now, if they can afford something bigger, great, absolutely. But most people, especially in this type of market that we're in right now, they're buying a true starter home, a 3-bed, 2-bath, 2-bed, 2-bath condo, 3-bed, 2-bath townhome, you know, whatever it may be, right? At a price point that's a little bit lower. But then gradually over time, because we see normal appreciation in our market where, you know, on average, historically speaking, in Southern California, it's like 5%. So you buy, you know, $500,000 house, the house is worth $525,000 and you didn't do anything. You literally just paid the mortgage. Or in this, you know, we always joke about with people who rent it's like, it's just like you paying the rent, right? But as long as you can afford it, and then 4 or 5 years down the road when baby number 1 comes on the way, and then all of a sudden, baby number 2's now you move out of necessity, but you've gained all of this equity during that period to where now you can leverage that to buy your next house. I think the average amount of homes that people have owned in their lifetime is something like 3 homes.
Okay.
And it's not because they're picky and they go, well, I bought the 4-bed, 3-bath and I just want to now go buy the other 4-bed, 3-bath and now I want to do this. Are there people like that? Absolutely. But I think the reason why it's 3 is most people's journeys are the following. They buy a starter home, they then outgrow it, and then they buy their house that they'll be in for maybe the next 10 years. They move to the better school district they want to be in or the better part of the town that they want to be in. I mean, we have that out here, right? There's some places that people desire more than others, right? I think it's just like any city. But that's where you sit there and you leverage that equity that you build over and over again to where you then are at a point where you're probably making more money in your job. You can fix your payment, obviously, but that payment stays relatively simple based off of the fact that you're building the equity of your house versus just trying to penny pinch and save outside of that. One of my best friends is the perfect example. I guess I told you, we have a million examples of that, but one of my best friends, he bought a house, him and his sister actually bought a house 10 years ago. And, you know, we can argue, prices of homes were, you know, way cheaper 10 years ago. Okay, they were also cheaper 20 years ago and 30 years ago, right? Exactly. So it's all relative. But the point of the story is they bought a house and it was like a 2-bedroom house in Newhall. Nothing crazy, but it was like, cool, we want to live here. Great. He got engaged about 3 years later. He then took his portion of the equity, sold it. Him and his wife bought a house in Saugus and they thought that they were like, great, this is our place. We're going to live here forever and stuff like that. And, you know, they had a great, easy monthly payment, you know, worked affordability wise for them. And then they ended up having a kid. Great, cool. They ended up having a second kid and realized,
there's
like,
not enough room.
And so now they're in a point, literally they're up the street from me, actually. They're here in Valencia and this is truly their forever house. But I joke about it and I go, and the house that he bought, by the way, was $800,000 house. But this was 5 years ago. It's probably worth over $1 million now. But the point being, at the time, $800,000 was expensive for that.
Exactly.
But the original house he bought was a $200,000 house. So how the heck does someone afford an $800,000 house when they started a $200,000 house. It's because they were just investing in the fact of real estate, right?
Yes.
And that the gained appreciation they're getting during that time period. Because again, instant gratification, you think that you just put the money in and all of a sudden $100,000 later, here you go, right?
Yes.
And I think that's what we want to happen. That's not realistic, right?
Yeah, that's not reality.
And you can talk to anyone's parents. I think they would say the same thing. It's like they bought a house and then when it was time, they just leveraged that over to the next place.
Right.
But that's, I think, the tried and true way that people have been able to then move up into the house that they want to and be in that forever house at that point in time.
Right.
Me and Katie did that. We had a condo literally down the street from here. We then bought our 2-bed. It was technically a 3-bed if you count the loft, right? But 3-bed, 2-bath. And then when we found out we were pregnant with Audrey, it was like, okay, we're outgrowing and here we are. And there's no way I would have ever been able to afford the house I'm in if we didn't have that condo in the first place.
Right.
So you got to start somewhere.
Yes.
Otherwise it's going to just get harder and harder. And it's not that it's impossible. You just have to be at a point where you fully understand, like, okay, at this point in time in my life, I can afford X.
Yes.
I can afford this. And I'm okay with that. And we also live in a world where people try and keep up with the Joneses.
Yes.
And I mean, you even touched on, you can say it too, but it's like, you felt like you had to have the house right away.
Right.
And now you're here and you're like,
the 2-story house with the 4 bedrooms. And you guys, it was just me and David back then.
And that's my point is like, you'll get there.
Right.
You guys will, but like out of necessity right now,
exactly,
doesn't make sense, right?
Yes.
Like if it was just me and Katie, I wouldn't want a 3,500 square foot house. It's way too big. What am I going to do with all that space?
Right.
But I think people want it just to say, like, look what I have.
Exactly. Yeah. So kind of checking yourself. What do you actually need?
And more importantly, like I said, too, is like you do other things outside of your house.
Right.
Like you guys go on a vacation.
Yes.
You like to go out with friends and go grab drinks or dinner or I don't know. You just spend money elsewhere.
Yes.
And, is there a right and wrong way to spend your money? Sure. Everyone's got different little things like that. But it's like, that's where you talk to someone and go, okay, what is your lifestyle? How is this going to change?
Yes.
And then does this fit in your plan?
Yeah.
And if it fits in your plan, you can afford this house. And then obviously everyone's like, oh, well, great. But then they're worried about taking the risk at that point in time.
Right.
So, but that's where I come in and I evaluate and we kind of look at the big picture versus just the mortgage payment specifically.
Yes. Yeah.
Because like you said, you might just hear, hey, home prices are expensive and interest rates are way higher than they were 2 years ago. Well, yeah, of course that. Everyone knows that. Yeah. But it's just one of those things where if you block out that and you look at, okay, can you afford the monthly payment?
Right.
That's really what it comes down to.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that that's really important too, is taking into account the lifestyle you want to be living. Because if you do accept that high mortgage and then you're, what was the term you used? Counting your pennies.
Yeah. Penny pinching, you're eating ramen noodles and maybe not going on trips,
right. And that's also important to you, making sure that you're keeping that in mind as well.
I had a client, who he's a car guy and like, that's a hobby that he has.
Yeah.
And, he had payments that were thousands of dollars for these cars. And someone like me who's not a car guy, I'm like, why the heck would you have this?
Yeah.
But he looked at it, he's like, you don't understand, like, this is what I enjoy doing. Yeah. And it's like, great, then we have to structure the price point of the house that you want based off of you having these other liabilities.
Yes, exactly.
Versus just going, oh, you can only qualify for this.
Right.
And then they don't understand why, but then you have to explain to them, like, look, because of this other thing. Yeah. And by the way, I don't want to take that away from you. If that's what you enjoy doing, you get other
people. Let's just take it into account.
Yeah. Other people will go, you have to get rid of those. Otherwise you can't buy a house. It's like, no, let's manipulate it and figure out where we can get to that point.
Absolutely.
So you just have to, sit down. You have to listen to your clients. You have to figure out what their wants and needs are.
Yes.
And then sometimes you have to take them off of the ledge and go, okay, hey, like, we're not there yet, but like, let's get you to here so that in 5 to 10 years, you can be here when that price point comes back. And now it's more affordable or you can realistically afford it at that point.
Absolutely. Right? Yeah. I know that when David and I talked to you, we kind of left with so much information, felt so educated, and kind of a little update on what we've been doing. We've been saving and putting money into an HYSA account.
Oh, love it.
And so our plan is we don't plan on buying. We've now pushed it back one more year. So for 2 years. Yep. And so if we can continue to contribute into that account where the money is growing, then that will only help us, but all of that action came out of the education and the knowledge that you shared with us.
And you bring up a good point too, because it's like you guys came and sat with me because you were interested in buying a house,
right?
And you needed to know what the steps were, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can go online and Google what it takes.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that you have to
Google anything.
You have to always meet with me, otherwise you're gonna have no idea what it takes to buy a house. Of course, you can go online and Google or YouTube, or I mean, there's so many different outlets for that too, right? But the point is, you guys came and sat with me. We put a plan into place, and we've maybe extended that plan now, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Because like at this moment in time, you guys aren't ready to buy a house. And I think that's totally fine. Right. And I get people all the time, and I'm sure there's probably been memes that you've seen where it's like, oh man, I should have bought a house back in 2008 when I was 6 years old. Yeah. It's like, okay, that's a little unrealistic. Yes. But I even have people that are like, man, I should have bought 3 years ago when the rates were low, or even the price points that felt high don't seem as high as they are now. It's like, yeah, we all wish we could have done that, but you weren't at a point where you were ready to do it. There's always a point where you're ready to enter the market. And then that's when the numbers and the perspective of it all becomes actually relative at that point in time, because it's true to your financial situation at that point in time.
Absolutely.
So, but yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I have always really prided myself on taking the time to sit and look at the big picture more than just someone that comes to me and goes, because I get this a lot too, where someone's like, hey, we went and saw an open house this weekend. It's a $950,000 house. What is it? I need to get qualified. That's what my agent told me. Like, okay, let's look at your numbers.
Right.
We run it. We run the numbers. And hey, you can't afford this. What do you mean I can't afford this? Because in their mind, they go, well, yeah, sure I can.
Yes.
And then you sit there and you break it down for them. They're like, okay, well then what do I need to do in order to qualify? Okay, well, maybe we need to tackle this debt, or you need to save a little more. Hey, is so-and-so going to be getting a raise anytime soon? Normal cost of living and inflation goes up, and, these are things. Or you have the heartfelt conversation with them and you say, you can't afford this price point right now. This is realistically where you need to be.
Yes.
But we'll get you to that point at some time, but you've got to start here first to then go forward after.
And I can imagine that that's heart-wrenching, because they just went to that open house, they're like ready to, in their mind, ready to buy.
Yeah. So we have to be very thick-skinned in our industry, because I'm not going to say that we're the bearer of bad news sometimes, but we put things into perspective. I think we give them, and again, maybe lack of a better term, it's like a reality check. It's like, because in your mind you go, oh man, this house looks great.
Right.
Oh, it's $900. Okay, well maybe we can do this. And then you see the payment and they go, oh wow. And it's like, yeah, like there's nothing I can do about that, because that's just currently what it is based off of your current financial situation.
Yes. How
do we change that? Let's put a plan in place.
Right.
Put more money down, save here, pay off this student loan debt, pay off this car payment. Maybe you have family, friends, whoever it is, that are willing to gift you some funds for the time being. Like I was just telling someone this the other day, like I think 6 or 7 transactions that are done for first-time home buyers right now have some sort of gift being involved from their family. And I think it's because the parents want to help out their kids. They know the struggle that they went through. Right. And, there's the joke about, oh, the boomers have all the money and this and that. And it's like, they were there because look at all of the wealth that they built through real estate by owning their house. And now they're at a point where they want to be able to pass that along to their kids too. Absolutely. So like, don't be embarrassed by that. Like if they want to help you out, take it. Right. I think a lot of people are very proud about like, no, I want to do this on my own. And it's like, well, this can at least give you the stepping stone to get into the next direction. Right.
Sure. And that's a whole thing on its own, is learning to accept help. Yeah.
I think we naturally as humans are very proud of the way that we do things, and you want to prove to the world, that
especially now where the world can see everything we're doing. Social media. And like that.
And it's so important that it goes back to kind of what we were talking about, where it's like, if you focus on the people around you, like, and you're not trying to impress people, but like you have a purpose in life. And like, for me, it's from a work standpoint, it's like, I want to get people into homes and I want them to feel comfortable understanding the process that it takes. And I think, again, it's one of my strongest qualities is when we actually enter into an escrow, they were like, this was so smooth. It was so easy. Like, I can't believe, like, because you took the time and I felt totally fine. Like, they're more stressed before getting into the actual escrow of the house versus during, where it should be the opposite.
Yeah.
You should be stressed when you're in escrow because, hey, is this going to go through? That sort of thing. And it's like, more often than not, it's the exact opposite. And that means I've done my job properly. So
they're well informed. They've got all the knowledge that you've shared with them.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, I think it's, you know, it's important. I think that there's just like anything. And again, I know I sound like a broken record, but it's like, we can Google everything nowadays. We can look it up, but it's like, we still value a professional's opinion about something.
Yes.
And I know you experience that with your clients all the time too. Like, you know, someone can listen to a podcast and might get the help that they need, but like sometimes they need to like, I need someone to hear what I'm saying.
Right.
And then from a professional, you give me advice or we put a plan together to help you get that.
Exactly.
And that's the point, is like, there's no better feeling when you've helped someone out, and we help people in different ways.
Right.
And for me, it's finances, obviously. For you, it's personal health and wellness. Right. And it's why it's so important that we rely on other people. I don't know if you do it in your line of work, but for me too, like, do I understand the tax benefits of owning a house? Absolutely. But what do I tell my clients all the time? I'm not a CPA.
Yes.
You need to advise, you need to talk to your or your CPA, or, hey, how do you invest the money? Here's what I would do. I'm not a financial advisor though. You need to talk to a financial advisor.
Right.
Like, you can't be an all-in-one stop shop, but you need to be able to have these outlets of people that you can rely and trust.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so,
it's so important and it's so valuable.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And so, I mean, you know, I've learned a lot over the years, and I've, you know, grown in so many different ways, and I've learned to kind of shape my business in the way that I want and block out the noise.
Absolutely.
So
important.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm a competitive person, and, you know, I don't like to say this, but it's like, our job is a sales job if you really think about it, but I've never looked at it that way.
Right.
Because it's not about trying to get someone into a loan just to make money. Like, yeah, we all need to make money for sure to live and, you know, provide a good family or provide a good lifestyle for our families and stuff like that too. Yes. But for me, it's the idea of that you're really helping someone out. You're getting them into a point where, I mean, I think most people, they want to eventually own some sort of property.
Right.
Like, I think that's everyone's goal. It's the American dream, right? It's the thing that we've always learned. But there's a sense of pride of owning an asset that, like, you went, man, I worked so hard to get to this point, and here I am, and look what I've accomplished. Yeah. And there's no better feeling than being involved in that process.
Yes. And when I think about you, like, when you come to my mind, I don't think salesperson either, even though, you know, it is involved. Same thing for me. But I wanted to let you know, like, I think, oh my gosh, he's got a wealth of knowledge. I want to learn. And that's why I was like, David, we have to go talk to Kevin. He was like, okay. And again, I can't express just how much knowledge we gained. I think we talked for 3 hours.
Yeah, it was almost 3 hours, I think. Yeah,
definitely. And it flew by, and you know that you're a good educator when you can, you know, capture the people that you're talking to and be sharing, so like the knowledge you shared, which is just so valuable. And we walked out of there. David, I think he said something along the lines of, I feel so good. And to say that after talking to someone about buying a home, you know, usually it's like, I'm scared, I'm nervous, I'm anxious. But he left and he said he felt so good. And we've taken action toward saving towards a down payment. And I think that that's just so cool, because that's the ripple effect that you sharing your knowledge has.
And again, buying a house is probably the biggest financial commitment you're going to make in your life. You know, in terms of the amount of money you're borrowing from a bank or a lender, like, unless you're a business owner that's running a multi-million-dollar corporation, like, yeah, you're probably maybe going to borrow some, you know, different types of loans for that to build out your business. But I would say 98% of the country this is the biggest financial commitment they're going to make in their life. Yes. And you want someone that you're going to be able to trust and relate to. And, you know, I say it all the time. It's like, there's a million loan officers out there. Right. There's a million financial advisors, a million CPAs, tax people, insurance agents, like, why do you choose someone? It's because you establish a relationship with them and you trust that person,
Right.
especially when it comes to money and the finance aspect of it. So
Absolutely. Well, as we wrap up, I would love to know what your definition of thriving is.
yeah. Yeah, it was funny. I remember you asking me about it,
Yeah.
and I don't know. I mean, I've listened to your podcast. I know what other people have defined it as, and it's funny. As I was listening, I was like, I don't know if I would define, which is fine.
Yeah, and that's
But
why I like to ask everyone
no,
because it's different.
Yeah,
It's
because I
unique.
mean, you look at the definition of thrive, and it's
Right.
like, okay, here's three options of what it is, and it's like, does it have to necessarily relate to that, right? And it's like, no, you can have your own interpretation of it.
Exactly.
And for me, thriving has always been, and look, I already talked about it. Like, I grew up playing sports. I was in a competitive environment from 5 years old all the way till I graduated. And, I still coach. So like there's competitive nature there too. And thriving to me has always been like, look, you set a goal and all you're trying to do is achieve that goal. And you're willing to do absolutely anything to get that done. Yeah. And so for me, it's always been like, the idea, oh man, geez, I had what I was going to say. Now I have to start over.
Got it.
No, it's okay. No, but like back to its core, right? The thriving aspect of it for me has always been like, here's a goal. You have to be able to get there. Well, what are you going to do? And it's like, it's hard work. It's not easy.
Right.
And you have to, but when you set that goal and it's truly a goal that you really want to accomplish, buying a house, losing 40 pounds, right? What are you going to do between now and the time that it's going to take to do that?
Yes.
And it helps you stay dedicated and keeps you motivated. And for lack of a better term, the euphoria you get from like achieving that is unbelievable. And so thriving to me, because it can ever evolve, like it can continue to change we should always set new goals everyone's always got like a New Year's resolution, right? Yeah. And it's like, I've never thought about like a resolution where it's like, hey, I need to stop biting my nails, right? Or I want to quit drinking alcohol for a month. Like, I'm like, that's just more of like hey, let's make a little quick lifestyle change. And it's like, let's put something in place that you've always wanted to do and what you've always wanted to achieve, right? And then when you buckle down and you actually put the time and the effort, because there's a true end goal, like, and again, going back to the volleyball thing, for me, it's like, there's a true end result. You either won or you lost. Yeah. And there was nothing more disappointing, unfortunately, than losing. And you then go, okay, I hate that feeling. How do I make sure that feeling doesn't happen again? Right. And it's up to you at that point in time to motivate yourself to then go, I need to be that much better the next time.
Yeah. Change your actions.
100%. Yes. And so to me, that's where I was going to say, like, I kind of twisted and turned the term of thriving is like, look, you have a goal in place. What are you going to do in terms of getting it done? But then the feeling afterwards is where you thrive in the sense of like, I did it. Like I felt so accomplished and I was able to do exactly what I wanted to do because of all that hard work and dedication that I did too. We have young kids, obviously, and there's going to be a point where we have conversations with them and we go, look, what are your interests? Like, and would I love for my kids to play sports? Absolutely. If they just show no interest in sports, I'm not going to force feed it on them. Right. But it's like, if my son wants to take a piano or my daughter's like, I want to be a gymnast. Well, gymnast would be sports, but like, I don't know, a coder. I'm just making up something. Right. Yes. Then great. We're going to like, if this is truly what you want to do and what you're passionate about, you're going all in on it. Right. And like, look, you try it out. And if you don't like it, then we're not going to get force feed it. Yeah. But if you show me a true passion for it, like we want you to give it your 110%, your all. And if you walk away from it going, I gave everything that I possibly could in that situation, then be proud of yourself. Yes. And, we live in a world, like you said, where it's like everyone wants their kids to thrive. Right. They want them to be successful in what they do, but success can come in so many different definitions.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so I think that's how I look at it is like, look, if you put your best foot forward and you really grinded it out and you just absolutely crushed it and knowing you walk away from the whole aspect of like, look, I busted my ass to get this thing done, then that alone is worth the definition of thriving, in my opinion.
I love that. Well, thank you for sharing.
Yeah, of course.
I love that so much. And thank you for hanging out with us today.
Yeah, no, this was great. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. So if listeners would like to connect with you, how can they go about that?
Yeah. So, I have an Instagram page where, we were talking about earlier, where if you're looking for home information specific to the mortgage aspect, like what does it take to qualify? What are the rules and guidelines? And kind of just, I don't get in the nitty gritty where we're muddying the waters a whole lot, but it's more so of just like, hey, here's something that maybe you've always wondered about. Like, what does Melrose tax mean? Or, what are the benefits of owning a house? Or, hey, why would it make sense to go this route versus this route in terms of the house that you're looking to buy? It's just quick little 1 to 2 minute segments. They can reach me on my Instagram page. It's KM Ker, so KMKER with just one R, 25. So KM Ker 25. You can also call me. Should we say that?
It's up to you.
Phone numbers, I guess.
I could also put it in the show notes if you'd like.
Sure,
Whatever information you'd like.
Yeah. You can always reach me on my cell phone too. And then you can also email me. It's kevin@augustafinancial.com.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure having you. And thank you, Thrivers, for listening. We'll see you next time.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for listening to the Thriving Purposefully podcast. If you loved today's episode, do me a favor and share a screenshot of this episode on Instagram story and tag me, or leave a 5-star review for my podcast on Spotify or iTunes. Your support means a lot and helps share the thriving movement. Thanks again for hanging out with me, Thrivers. Go out there and make today your best day yet.